Hi everyone. In this video, we will explore important information that you might have missed while reading the book. Hopefully, this helps clarify some questions you might have had. Let's start by looking at the Mangarians. We know that they are the families that took control of the earth after it was destroyed by the conflagration. They rebuilt society and therefore put themselves in charge over everyone else. They are the government, which means that they are the people in power. They live in the pleasant Mangaria city, where they have good living conditions. We know that they don't take part in the Fate Mate festival, and this is because they decide whom their children marry amongst themselves. And the reason for this is to ensure that power is kept between those families. Marriages are only for political reasons and not for love. Mangarians only marry other Mangarians. The Mangarians also decide who will be guardians of certain departments. And the voting process that we see in the mark is merely there to fool the public. We know that each voter only has 20 votes and must cast a vote to support each of the 20 candidates. If one person gets one vote, and you can only vote for one person one time, then each of the candidates will get an equal amount of votes, which in the end means that no person gets more votes than the other, and that is why the Mangarians have a meeting and discuss whose turn it is to be in charge. Then we'll move on and look at the Posh. They are the rich, upper-class members of society. They are just below the Mangarians on the hierarchy chain. They are privileged and they feel entitled, and we get this sense because of how they treat the traders. They treat the traders as if they were trash. We know that they are taught to read from a young age, which shows just how privileged they are. They have a lot more opportunities than the traders ever dreamed of. The Posh are described as having cold voices and slitty green eyes. Now we'll look at the traders. They are at the bottom of the hierarchy, and they are the lower class people who are allocated trades. Trades is just the word they use in the novel to refer to one's job. And these trades are decided by the machine. We have certain trades such as pulaks, judges, pleasure workers, and many more. We know that the traders live in Slum City, where the living conditions are horrendous. Traders serve the Posh and Mangarians. The traders are basically just there for physical labor. They are pretty much slaves to the Posh and the Mangarians, and they are treated accordingly. Then we'll come across credits. This is the currency used in the novel. It is the money. Just like in South Africa, our currency is rands. And in America, the currency is US dollars. Their currency is credits. Then in the novel, you'll see Savage City is mentioned quite a few times. And Savage City refers to a prison where prisoners are tortured and forced to work in extreme conditions until they die. We know that Kitty's parents were sent to Savage City, and there they were thrown into holes in the ground in the extreme sun, and they were left there to die. Eventually the rats ate them. So that's what happens to people who go to Savage City. They either die, or later on in the novel we discover that they actually get sent to the laboratory. Let's have a look at that. In the laboratory, food is manufactured, and this is done by genetic modification. They have parent cultures in the laboratory, which is the original source from many years ago that they have preserved, and then they take DNA samples and they clone the fruit and they reproduce it by means of cloning and genetics. We know that the Mangarians also conduct human experiments in the lab. So the public thinks that only the food is manufactured there, but when you read the novel, you will start to realize that the food is just a front. They actually conduct human experiments there as well. They conduct these experiments on the prisoners from Savage City, as well as the smalls, which are the small orphans. Okay, we also discover that in the lab they remove the marks from people's spines, and they do this so that the machine will record them as being dead, and the families will no longer look for them or wonder about where they are or what they're doing. Master Halton is in charge of the laboratory. He is the guardian of science and technology, so he runs the laboratory. So we can basically deduce that he is the mastermind behind the human experiments. And the reason that he's conducting these human experiments is to find a cure for his daughter's chronic illness. And her name is Larissa. Then we look at the building of population control. This is the red building, and this is where all the personal information on individuals is kept. All of the information is stored in this building. The building of justice and peace is a green building. It is opposite the building of population control, and this is where the machine is kept. This is also where the locusts station themselves. So this is pretty much like a police station where all the policemen, the law enforcement officers work. And this is also where people are sentenced to Savage City. So once again, it's to do with the law and justice. We know that this building has cellars, which means that there are underground buildings where the accused are kept, where the prisoners are kept, until they are found guilty and they are charged. The final building we will be looking at is the Parliament building. This is the smallest government building. Obviously, there are only 20 Mangarian families, so the building doesn't have to be too big to host only the Mangarians. Okay, as I said, this is where the 20 Guardians pass the laws that affect the public. Alright, then we look at the machine. The machine actually plays a big role in this novel. Everything is based around the machine, and the machine has certain functions. Let's have a look at them. Firstly, it assigns a number or the mark to newborn babies. That is when they get the mark. As soon as they are born, the machine gives them this number. It determines one's trade or career. It allocates one's future fate mate. It decides whom the people will marry, only the traders and the posh. It constantly tracks the citizens' whereabouts so they know exactly where you are at all times. And we know later on in the novel that it is solar powered. When it is solar powered, it is automatic, so it works by itself. But when the sun is gone or hidden behind clouds, it switches to manual power where the people have to run it. Then we'll look at the tellers. Now the tellers are hardy-daws. This is a type of bird that we find in South Africa. And these hardy-daws are blinded by witches. And the reason that they are blinded is that as soon as their eyes are damaged, their telling senses are enhanced, which means they are able to focus on telling the future, so they speak more accurately. And they can only do this once their eyes are damaged or once they are blinded. Then we look at bug juice. This is a fermented drink, which means it's alcoholic, and it's made from fruit. But the reason it gets its name, bug juice, is because the flies are attracted to the juice, and they fall inside and sink to the bottom, where they become part of the juice. Hence the name bug juice. It's really gross. At the bottom of the juice is dead fly carcasses and guts. It's really gross. Okay, then moving on, we'll look at the Fate Mate Festival. And now this is a festival that happens twice a year, and this is when you turn 16 and you are assigned a fate mate. So when you turn 16, it's your time to get married, and according to the number on your spine, you have a fate mate. So this is basically a mass marriage ceremony where you are introduced and married to your fate mate at the festival. Couples are forced to say a vow in which they promise to be together until death and to work loyally for the state of Mangaria and to breed healthy children. Now everybody knows that when a woman is pregnant, she can't control how the baby grows or how the baby is going to look. But the Mangarians actually force these people to promise that they are not going to give birth to deformed babies. And this is impossible. But the traders are so naive, they just vow to it anyway. Then you will hear in the novel the mention of Smalls. Now, the Smalls are basically orphans under the age of 5. Because they are still small children, they get the nickname Smalls. And we see that they are experimented on in the laboratory. The orphan warden sells the Smalls to the Mangarians for credits, and then we actually see them at the laboratory, and they are being experimented on before their 5th birthday. Then, just like the Smalls, we get the Bigs, but the Bigs are the orphans over the age of 5. They are the older and bigger children. And they go to trade school on their 5th birthday. So once they turn 5, they go to school where they learn how to work according to their trade. So if you're a drudge, you will go to drudge school like Edyth, or if you're a pleasure worker, you will go to pleasure worker school where you will learn to be a good pleasure worker. They leave the orphanage when they turn 15. This is when they graduate from school and are sent off to work their trade. That's when they begin working, after the age of 15. In the case of the orphans, they leave the orphanage, which is section O, and they move to new living quarters where they work. So when Edyth graduated on her 15th birthday, she was sent to live in the drudge compound, or in the living quarters near to the Mangarians, because she would have to look after their children. Kitty also left the orphanage and worked at the pleasure clubs, so she lived at a living quarter near the pleasure clubs. Okay guys, I really hope this has helped clear some questions that you might have had. Please feel free to leave a comment if you have any questions. I'd be happy to assist you.